Well, hi guys, it's that time. It's our Bible teaching snippet of the day. Well, today I want to talk about the origins or the beginning of when mankind began to hunt and kill animals and to eat their flesh, okay? Before I do that, though, I feel like I just need to start this teaching again today saying this. I'm not condemning or judging anybody at all, and I'm certainly not telling people how they need to live, okay? What I am doing is trying to open up our minds so we can think about why we're doing the things we are. Have we really considered it, and should we be doing it? So a lot of times we just live in the traditions that are passed down to us, okay, and we don't really think about it. And I'm just wanting us to think about, should we be eating meat if we have other alternatives, as well as is it good for us, okay? So I don't want to get into arguments and fussing and all of that because, look, part of the reason I became a vegetarian and a vegan is because that I believe that Jesus wanted us to live a nonviolent, peaceful lifestyle, which would include not killing animals because it takes a little bit of violence to kill them, right? So what good would it do for me to get into violent conversations, right, and not live in peace with people? But let me say this for the record. I've only been a vegetarian since October of 2018. For the most part of all my whole life, I grew up eating meat. My parents had meat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that type of tradition in my family. One of the reasons that I may not have any health issues, just so you know, is because as an adult, I kind of got into a habit in my early 20s only eating about one meal a day. That's not every day. If I wanted to, I could eat 2 meals a day. It wasn't something I made myself do. I'm just saying that overall, I would eat 1 meal a day up until just recently, maybe at 2 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon, and that was it, guys. So I didn't eat a lot of meat, even if I ate meat every meal, if you only eat 1 meal a day. So that may be why I don't have some health issues that some other folks have that have a real heavy 3 meat a day diet, okay? So with all of that said and put that down, I want to make sure people understand. I'm just only trying to educate and help people and maybe open our minds to there could be a better way for us to live, right? So let me start this teaching like this. I want to read a quote from Clement of Alexandria. His estimated date of life in the earth, okay, his birth date and date that he died is around that 160 time, okay, 160 AD through about 240 AD. So let me read the quote from him. But those who bend around inflammatory tables, nourishing their own diseases, are ruled by a most licorice demon, whom I shall not blush to call belly demon, and the worst of all demons. It is far better to be happy than to have our bodies act as graveyards for animals. Accordingly, the Apostle Matthew partook of seeds, nuts, and vegetables without flesh. And that's Clement of Alexandria's quote. The reason I wanted to quote that to you is because I want to pull some things together today. The earlier church leaders, okay, understood where mankind got the idea of eating the flesh of animals, and it was not from God. It was from the demons or the devils or the fallen ones, okay? Over time, as the apocryphal books were taken out and not used in the churches anymore, they were not read as much, the church leaders as well as the congregants did not understand where exactly the tradition or the lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, of eating, hunting, and killing animals and eating their flesh came from. But the early church, the closer you get to Jesus, his day, and those first leaders of the church, John, James, Peter, and those guys, okay, they understood where mankind got that practice. So today I want to talk to you about where did men learn to eat meat. And I'm going to go over to Enoch chapter 7. And I'm going to read to you verse 14 and 15. And it's talking about the fallen angels, okay? And I'll put in the word they. And they began to injure birds, beasts, reptiles, and fishes, to eat their flesh one after another, and to drink their blood. Then the earth reproved the unrighteousness. That word reproved right there means to have a negative response to this unrighteousness. Now, let me go ahead, and that's the last verse, that verse 7:15 in Enoch. Now I'm going to go right over to Enoch 8, chapter 8, verse 1. And moreover, Azazel, and I probably messed that name up, but it's a fallen angel, taught men, watch this, to make swords, knives, shields, breastplates. And then it talks about all the other things that they did too, but I'm going to read that last part of the verse, and it says, so the world became altered. Impiety increased, fornication multiplied, and they transgressed and corrupted all of their ways. Okay, now, so we see here that according to the book of Enoch, it was the fallen angels who came, and this happened in Genesis chapter 6. This is in our typical 66 book Bibles, okay? Genesis 6, it talks about how the sons of God, which would mean fallen angels, okay, angels, who came and mated with women. That was the incursion of the fallen ones. And according to Enoch, this is where, because they did it, and then they taught mankind how to make these weapons also, and this is when violence increased as well. Now, here's what I want to bring out for the rest of this teaching, maybe, just to give you an idea. As the church, like I said, the progression of the church, we see that the leaders in the church don't realize that it was, they call it devilish, okay, and eating with demons and things like this, and they call it evil. Some of them call it sinful. But at the same time, I don't think all of them understood at that point, 200 or 300 years later, that it was actually believed in the beginning that it was taught to mankind by the fallen angels. I'm going to read you a quote by, and these guys are not on my Faye Likes These Fellow list, okay, because I've already done a long series on the changes or the impact that Jerome and Augustine had in the 5th century on Christianity. What their impact still is in our churches, all of their wrong teachings and false doctrines. Jerome is the one that translated the Latin Vulgate and made huge translation errors, taking from the Hebrew and Greek, Hebrew Old Testament and Greek New Testament into Latin. Huge errors in some of his translations, and he added things and took away things. So Jerome did huge damage through the Bible translations, and then Augustine did horrendous damage to the body of Christ when he taught the doctrine of hell, and there's a lot of other ones too, the sovereignty of God, and there's just this list, okay? So let me just quote, though, because even they understood that eating meat was not God's will and his plan. Let me read St. Augustine's quote. He says, Jacobus, which we call him James, okay, the brother of Jesus, lived of seeds and vegetables and did not accept meat or wine. Okay, here's St. Jerome, and he talks about Jesus Christ, who appeared when the time had been fulfilled, has again joined us with the beginning, with the end and the beginning. Let's see if I can find the rest of his quote, because I cut it off. And so that it is no longer allowed for us to eat animal meat. Let me read that again. Jesus Christ, who appeared when the time had been fulfilled, has again joined the end with the beginning, so that it is no longer allowed for us to eat meat. And that's St. Jerome, and he is by far probably one of my least favorite of all of the different early church leaders, okay? And then let's read a little quote from St. Basil, okay? Now, all of these men lived in that 329 on up to whenever they died. So they're in that 325 to 330 era, okay? And this is when the Roman Empire had started making some huge impact on Christianity in Rome, okay? But here's the St. Basil. The steam of meat meals darkens the spirit. One can hardly have virtue if one enjoys meat meals and feasts. In the earthly paradise before the fall is what he's saying. In the earthly paradise, no one sacrificed animals and no one ate meat. So there's you some quotes from those three early church fathers from the 300s, okay? So what I see is that we lose our understanding of when and how men started eating meat. St. Jerome believed, the one that I just quoted about that Jesus connected the end to the beginning, and now we can't eat meat. It is not what God wants us to do. He actually believed that men started eating meat starting after the flood because of Genesis chapter 9. But let me say that one more time. You know, the 14 books of the Apocrypha was not used in the church like it was in the earlier days of when what I was quoting with like Clement of Alexandria. Now, for me to wrap this up today, I want to tell you a little something that's very interesting. Did you know John Wesley, the founder of the Methodists, and he was a vegetarian? I'm going to give you a quote. "Thanks be to God" is the name of this. He wrote to the Bishop of London in 1747. "Since the time I gave up the use of flesh meats and wine, I have been delivered from all physical ills." So I have been delivered, partly inspired by Isaiah's vision of the kingdom of peace, where on the new earth no creature will kill or hurt or give pain to any other. Wesley further taught that animals should receive ample amends for all their present sufferings. Now that's just a quote that I gave you. But watch this. So Wesley was a vegetarian. And get this, Gandhi goes to a Methodist church, an all-white church, by the way, right? They're there doing missionary work. And this black man wants to join the service and come in and fellowship with these guys and hear more about Jesus. And they would not allow him to enter the church because only white people were saved by Jesus. So Gandhi was a vegetarian. I think it's interesting that Wesley, the Methodist leader, was a vegetarian. Gandhi's a vegetarian as well, and the two men never even knew each other because a very religious denomination, we're in, everybody else is out, that typical idea, they wouldn't let this man, and he even made the quote, "I really love Christianity's Jesus, but I don't much like the people of the church." Okay, and I'm not quoting that perfect, but let me read you something from Gandhi. Gandhi says, I do feel that spiritual progress does demand at some stage that we should cease to kill our fellow creatures for the satisfaction of our bodily wants. So I just think it's interesting that Christianity missed a huge opportunity for Gandhi to become a Christian, a follower of Jesus, because we rejected him for his color. But at the same time, he, as well as the leader who started the Methodist Church, both felt like that human beings needed to stop eating meat because it was bad for their health, spiritually and physically, and it was wrong to harm the animals. Guys, I'm going to sign off. I love you, and I hope you have enjoyed this teaching today. Okay, I'll see you here tomorrow. Bye-bye.